welcome to What We Learned This Week, episode 19, where it might not matter,
but we're going to talk about it anyway.
I'm Shalene.
And I'm Liz.
And we have a really awesome opportunity to learn all together this week. So instead of us talking about what we did learn, we're going to be instructed by an expert, I would say.
This. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. I don't really know her very well. Liz, this is your teacher?
Yeah. Teacher, mentor, friend, associate.
Yeah.
Yeah. For several years. We ended up talking about this subject a little bit back. And I just thought, you know what? What if we started including, and we kind of chatted about it, Shalene and I, what if we started including hearing from people that are doing their thing, right? Like they're, like she said, experts in the field, or this is their primary way of finding work or satisfaction with their life. And we want to hear from them.
Yeah. Or like an aha moment that turned into something that is a passion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot.
I think it does, because sometimes that aha moment comes from, well, honestly, I've noticed a lot of times it can come from strife or
right,
a difficult experience, right? The adversity creates the catalyst for that growth and change. So.
Yeah, it's true. I was just reading an article about a lady who said that she was, I don't know what she did, but she had to be in surgeries, but I don't think she was a doctor.
Okay. So like
she was
a
like
nurse,
a medical rep or something.
Assistant or something. Or
yeah. And she was like nursing a baby like 3 o'clock in the morning. And
oh my gosh.
She said something about, well, what if your kid came to you? And she'd be like, I don't have time to talk to my kid about anything because I have to be at work in 10 minutes. And just talked about like taking a minute and giving that gift of time to yourself.
Yeah.
And that she said it was like this aha moment, and she started this company.
Oh my gosh.
Based on taking time for yourself. And anyway, so yeah, it kind of came out of this moment of desperation.
Right.
I didn't explain it very well, but hopefully you get the gist.
Totally got it, because that's what ended up, I mean, so she wasn't a surgical assistant anymore then after that, right? Like she started, or did she do she started the company, it was kind of on the side and inspirational to others?
Didn't finish the article, if I could be honest, but
it did sound very inspiring from the beginning.
But yeah, awesome. She did start some sort of movement because of that moment.
That's awesome.
So,
well, we will turn this podcast the rest of the way over to our interview with Corena Hammer and introduce her, and hope you enjoy as much as we enjoyed getting to talk to her.
Yeah. Liz and I have a special, something that we're starting, I guess. We're going to have experts come and teach us what they know so that we can learn. So all of us will be able to learn. We're going to have Liz's mentor.
Yes.
Sure.
Our friend, all the good things.
Yes. So will you introduce her, Liz?
Absolutely. Welcome on the show, Corena Hammer.
Thank you.
We're so excited to have you talk and share with us today. Corena was my teacher during teacher training for yoga, and you guys already know that I'm a little yoga obsessed. So
we love it.
Pull this into my life and share. It's just going to happen. It was life-changing for me, and I just can't help wanting to pass that along. And we've known each other, gosh, is it how many years now, Corena? 7?
7 or 800. I'm not sure.
Oh gosh.
It's been a lifetime of joy.
Oh.
And Corena actually does a lot of work outside of just yoga. She is what we would maybe call, I don't know, someone who transforms lives, who changes lives, who assists others in their transformation. Is that a fair way to, I don't know, that's my fair way to assess Corena.
Yeah, I would say that. And I guess I never really change anyone. I help them reveal themselves is what I feel like I do.
So like personal coaching? Or
not on purpose, but
I help
return people. I return people to themselves. I return them to their own hearts. And sometimes that's through conversations, and a lot of times it's through yoga, and sometimes it's through phone calls of intentional, I know you've been there and done that. Show me some guideposts and help me along the way. So sometimes it's like that. Yeah.
Okay. So lead me up to kind of your qualifications for what you do. What kind of led you to this?
Sure. And just to be clear, I don't do that full time for my job. That's
Oh,
just who I am. It's my way of
wow.
right now. What I'm doing is I am doing some consulting work for a med spa here in Salt Lake, probably the number one med spa in Salt Lake,
Okay.
helping them with some business coaching and some how to create connection with their clients kinds of things. And then I also do yoga teacher training. I do teacher training for clinical therapists and psychologists.
Oh,
I helped open the first yoga studio in Mombasa in Africa.
cool.
I helped teacher trainings in Texas, in Idaho. I've helped them here in Utah. And what else? Duke University hired me to train Nike executives a couple of years ago. They bring together 35 executives worldwide and form them into the next great thing for Nike. And I was part of the training for them at Duke University. I was the first national or internationally chosen brand ambassador for Athleta. So I had some good stuff come my way.
That's why we want to talk, because she's got some experience in the field.
Yes, and I have 2 kids, and they're both married to
Okay.
that made some great choices. And my daughter has her baby, so I have my first grandbaby, and my second one's on the way. My son and his wife are going to deliver in a few months, so I'll be a grandma twice over.
Oh, that's amazing. I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
So, do you have a degree from college in business marketing, or is that just something that you gained over time?
I graduated from MSU, which means make stuff up.
Nice. I like it.
I have learned by skinning my knees, taking refresher courses in That's Not Your Business, Corena. Nice, I grew up, I guess, with this entrepreneur spirit, and a lot of what has happened in my life was, I don't want to say self-taught because somebody taught me, right? It was self-motivated, and I would find books, or I would find a person, or I would find whatever I needed. When I opened my studio, I started watching Shark Tank to really understand business. My mom had owned her own business, but there's nothing like actually owning it to prepare you for it. And so much of what I learned, I was doing so many things for myself because I opened it on a shoestring and just had to learn as I went. And so for this particular company that I'm working for, their skill set, what I had in a variety of ways, is just exactly what they needed to make a turn and a change that they needed to make in their company. So I've been doing that for about 6 or 7 months.
Wow. That is really amazing. I admire people who are entrepreneurs because that is very scary to me. So way to go.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So Corena, something you talked about really piqued my interest about helping people with transformations, and that you said that it's not necessarily a job, it's kind of who you are as a person. What kind of led you to that in your life?
I grew up, as many of us did, in a super chaotic family. But unlike other people, I didn't actually know it was chaotic. I just thought the whole world. And
It's
yet
the
I was
norm.
looking at it saying, I am never going to be this. And I think a lot of us say that, and then we don't know how to get there. And when I was growing up, I'm 53. I didn't grow up with the internet.
Right.
I had Barnes and Noble and buy the whole book. I didn't just get an Instagram feed of positive quotes. And I started on this journey of recovering. I felt very fragmented.
Was this in like your 20s?
This was, even as a kid, I really started looking at what is going on and how can I feel better. I had trauma as a very young person, and I was not helped with that. And in addition to that, just my own family dynamic, that pathology would have fragmented somebody into 1,000 pieces. But to add these other traumas that were happening and having no help with it whatsoever, I knew I could not stay in the place that I was. In fact, I've been to so many healers or card readers or whatever who will look at me without me even talking about it, say, I can't believe you didn't kill yourself as a kid. I've had multiple people do that without me even telling a story around it. They know. And so even as a young person, I was seeking, right? And I can remember in 6th grade, this girl saying, "You should be a therapist." And I thought, that sounds fun. I would have to be a therapist.
Do you think you'd say that now?
Well, me being on my own journey led me to a lot of therapeutic thinking, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I did that from a young age. And there's this shedding of our skin that happens in our 30s. And I think it's really important for people to understand that. Mine started happening earlier because it needed to. I could not live in the skin that my family gave me. So I started seeking, and I would try this and that. You name it, I have tried it. Positive sticky notes, therapy, everything. And what I really discovered in the last few years that sort of pulled this all together for me was understanding fragmentation and understanding wounded energy. And when I usually say wounded energy, people right away grasp that. They're like, I've had some wounds and I don't know what to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
Vomiting too much, and I should pause and let you ask some questions. But
no, I think you're doing a great job. And, I have family trauma in my mom's side of the family. And definitely, I know a lot of 60, 70-year-olds that are still actually dealing with that wounded energy, have no idea that they're even really wounded. Yes. So I think it's so amazing that you were able to, that must have just been like a gift you were given, that you were able to recognize it and want to change it.
I think it was. I carry something that's kind of unusual and unique, and I don't know what to call it. Sometimes people call it empath. I think last year when I was in Africa, they gave me this they didn't give everyone a gift, but they gave a few people a gift, and they were all different, and they gave me this little soapstone thing, and it was called the messenger. And instantly I was like, but I'm a messenger.
That is amazing.
The message was always with me about healing. And I knew that, but the problem for me was that everybody was trying to convince me that this way of healing would work and that way of healing would work. Yeah. And the reality is there's got to be different modalities that we have. Like we wear a tool belt and there's 50 different things in there that we could try, right? But the goal is to be whole. Mm-hmm. But to be whole, we've got to call this wounded energy back. And it's up for everybody. You don't have to have had a specific trauma in your life to have wounded energy. Wounded energy can be, hey, I wanted to be a musician when I was little and my family was all saying that was so stupid. Boom, a wound that's like, go put that in a box because I don't want to be the stupid one in the family.
I don't want to hurt either.
I don't want to, and I don't want to hurt. And how can I figure out how to fit here? And so we start splitting off or fragmenting pieces of ourselves that don't work in our family dynamic or in our neighborhood or in our religion or in our, larger community. And so we get these wounds and we start trying to separate ourselves from that piece of who we are so that we be accepted. And everybody's wounded energy is coming back right now. And we're trying this positive only thing. Well, we all want to be happy. It's not natural to only always be happy. And trying to always be happy is actually making most of us pretty miserable. If you think about it, I find everything in nature and in our bodies is a match. Too many sunny days cause a drought.
Right. Right.
So it's not possible, nor is it normal, nor is it in this universe desirable to only be happy. And so you take a depressed person or somebody trying to work through a wound and they're being told chronically by others, well, you should be grateful for what you do have. Well, we can be grateful for what we do have, but we need to start where we are and acknowledge it before we can actually move from that place. If we were Oh, yeah.
Oh, I totally had a question. When you were talking about wounded energy and needing to call it forth to work on it, do you often find, just with people that you've worked with or in what you've done for yourself, that some of that wounded energy that you're calling forth can't help but have a connection to those, for example, maybe before you, or meaning generationally? So for my first thought when you were talking about some of this, and we touched on it a little in some of our, in a podcast or two back, but I couldn't help but think of how some of the reasons and things that I am dealing with my own traumas, right? My own wounds. There's some very deep connections to the traumas and wounds of those that went before, right? When you talked about raising your kids, there's this place of, well, I don't want to do this, this, and this, so this is why I'm raising them this way. Well, that's still coming from a wounded energy. You've linked all these generations before, or whatever happened in that trauma before you, with now your children. Is that a really big question?
Yeah.
I just couldn't help but think of.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I parented my children to make up for a childhood that they never had. I was making up for my childhood, and they weren't having that childhood. And so I was exhausted trying to over provide things for them that, to make sure this and that and the other, and they weren't even having that. And I wasn't present enough. Looking back, had I been more present with just what their issues were, I would have been less exhausted.
Yeah.
They might have maybe had a little different mom. I'm not blaming myself. I'm not saying it was tragic. I'm just saying, exactly like you said, I came from this space of history. And we have DNA that carries forward that says, oh, in our family, women get breast cancer around this age, men get prostate cancer. We carry DNA that way. The DNA is also emotional. We're learning through things like epigenetics and things like neuroplasticity that we get wired in a certain way through family history, but it's not a determination. It's only an explanation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's going to be the outcome. But again, if we don't acknowledge it, we can't move from it. Trying to put it in that box, which is what a lot of people, you mentioned like grandparent age, 60s, 70s, still working with this. They were just told, put it in a box, put a lid on it, and you don't talk about it. Like even at my mom's funeral, I wasn't allowed to really talk about her because you don't talk about things because that's done. It's over. Yeah. And I'm really, really from an entrenched backwoods Oklahoma tribe. And I tried to, mention some things that, I remember this about mom or that. And it would just make people cry and they would be so upset. So don't talk about it. Yeah. And so these histories, these past, these wounds, and they can be traumas, but they don't have to be, are imprinted in us. And we learn this is how we handle things. And that's not working anymore. All those boxes that they locked up, they're popping like crazy everywhere. We don't even have to look for our wounds. They're in our face right now.
Right. Which is possibly to some, are you kind of saying that that's why, not that it's worse, but that it's just all so in our face right now? Do you think that there's a connection there?
Yeah, it's a challenge. We have risen to a new level of understanding. And just like in school, if our parents graduated from 5th grade and went on and led their lives, they're not going to know as much, so they're not as aware. We're in the universal universities. We are all learning at these different levels. We are so much more aware. I can look up information about anything. I have more information, and you do too, on your phone than the Department of Defense did in the early 70s. Wow. So information has just infiltrated all of us. And now that we have this information, it's like now we need to deal with it. And the old way of put it in a box, don't look at it, that's just not even possible.
Yeah, that's really true. I've noticed it too, and maybe not in the way that you've been able to explain it, which I think is so beautiful, but I've seen evidence, I guess, of those boxes popping open, like you said. I see a lot of anxiety and depression, self-mutilation, all of these things with this generation. And so what is your goal now that you've recognized these wounds popping open? What are you planning on doing with that? Or what are you doing?
And to not be afraid of them. So let's even talk about suicide for a second, because not only are the suicide rates really high, my gut says they're going to go off the charts very soon, even for our kids. When we think about it, it can be explained by fragmented or wounded energy. When a part of us comes forward that we're not used to, I'll speak about myself. So I was the tough girl, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, put your feet on the floor, and you do what needs to be done for the day. That's how I got through my childhood. Well, this very vulnerable feminine piece of me came back, and I held a lot of masculine energy. And when this feminine side started coming back and I wanted it, you'd think that would just be wonderful. But this tough girl, this masculine energy had to stand down. And that was so scary for me. And when this feminine energy was coming to me, this more vulnerable and tender and I need help sometimes kind of side of me came forward, the rest of me was like, I'd rather we all die than have just that masculine side die off. Because the masculine side felt very protective. So when people are suicidal, it's helpful for them to know a piece of them needs to die when the wounded energy is coming back, a part of them that has overcompensated and been the strategy for how to handle things. Oh, I'm always going to be the good girl. I'm always going to be the good guy. And then this, not so pleasant one comes forward, and it just feels like I'm going to lose my whole identity. I'm going to lose all my friends. Nobody loves me. Nobody likes me. We should all die. All of these pieces of us. That's where suicide starts coming in instead of saying there's a part of me dying off and it's scary. And I might be in this really open blank space for a while and in the unknown. But that's where all the enlightenment comes. But it is the most frightening thing to our ego. So the ego starts thinking, well, let's just make all of us go away.
Yeah, that's a really insightful way to talk about it. And it sounds like you've got a lot of, for lack of a better way of saying it, a lot of experience and just deep understanding rooted around how to be with those that need to walk this journey, right? Like this is a journey to walk and to really look at these things square on and to navigate them. I don't know. I just think of, this is why she's my mentor and friend, Shalene. Because in navigating that in my own life, I just remember, meeting Corena was a big, huge, like, oh my gosh, I can talk about this. Right. And then having that person in your corner, in your field, while you're kind of figuring it out, and hey, they still love you while you're still falling apart.
I don't have to be perfect all the time. And people actually with that, what? Yeah. And the thing is, we're all in this space together. And unfortunately, even as women, we're claiming this women's support group, but we're shaming each other by saying, well, I know the answer to that, so you should be there. Oh, I know the answer to depression. Take this or do that. I know the answer to anxiety. Here's the answer. Well, somebody needs to experience where they are. Experience happens in the wounded energy. Fragmentation experience is the thing that actually creates the bridge into that new space. But everyone wants us to have the answer and then just move on. We're shaming each other for feeling and being emotional. In fact, there was a whole generation that was shamed for being emotional. Remember emo? We started using emo to shame each other. Don't be emo. And if you're emo, then you're all in black, and that means you're dark.
Oh man, I remember that.
We need to learn to experience our emotions, the full range of them, without getting lost in it. But if we can't experience the parts of us that fragmented off because they were afraid, if we can't experience it, they're not coming home to our hearts. We're not going to be whole. And so we've got to know, where am I, and be very honest about it. And then where do I want to go? And everyone just wants to look at that's where I want to go. But if we're in the Mall of America and we've never been there and we're trying to get to Nordstrom, the other thing that we have to know is where we're standing in order to get to Nordstrom. Because if we don't know where we are, we can have the greatest map in the world, but we can't get there. And people are trying to skip past the step of, this is the reality of where I am, and owning it, and then moving forward. We can't surrender something until we hold on to it. So people are like, oh, just let it go, let it go. Well, you have to hold it first. Then you can let it go. Hold it. This is how I feel. This is what happened. This is my story. And yet we're so afraid of it because it's easy to get lost in there. And it's true. It's easy to get lost. but we
Well,
got
and aren't there more layers too? I mean, if you start uncovering something and you hold that and you think you've let it go, I mean, I don't know how many times I've been like, no, I'm good. I'm done. We're done. We're done. I thought I dealt with this or whatever.
You would think a pile of poop only has one layer.
Shalene, it's a poop joke.
It is not. Don't call it a cupcake. It's not. You don't want it. It's not good. It's great. It's a pile of poop. Call it a pile of poop. Can you make something wonderful from it? Yes. But if we sit here and say all these horrible things have been wonderful, before we first say, I wouldn't wish that on my enemy. And that made me sad. And my heart broke. And I was torn up. If we just try and move before we first acknowledge ourselves, that's what brings us that wounded energy back so that we can incorporate it in a way that makes sense. That's the wholeness. But we keep wanting to miss the steps because we know the answers. It doesn't work that way.
Huh. It's really interesting that you talk about this because I think on a smaller level, I was taught a concept, and I think I've talked about it before, is when you're dealing with a negative emotion, say shame for forgetting your friend's birthday, and you feel really bad about it, but you're like, oh, I don't really want to feel bad. I'm just going to put it away. So what I was taught is kind of look in your body, see where you feel that shame. For me, it's like in my chest. And so I just sit there and like I think about shame and I feel it in my chest. And then pretty soon I realize that it's gone. Like it's not there anymore. And so on a simple level, I think that's kind of what you're saying. But could you give me a concrete example of maybe something a little bit more traumatic than forgetting your friend's birthday? Maybe that you would work through with someone, because I understand what you're saying, but in a practical sense, I kind of don't know what to do.
I'll give you a drama one. Trauma that was mine that I had to own. And I'm not saying everyone needs to do this, but when I got divorced and I was wanting to own my feminine energy, I attracted a man who had a ton of masculine energy, which was very nice for me so I could release into my femininity. Mm-hmm. He was going to own the male, and I didn't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was negative masculine energy. And he was very abusive, even though he was in a position for his career where he was supposed to help people. It turned out underneath that mask was an abuser. And it took me a while. He almost killed me twice. And I stayed. I kept trying to figure out, why am I making him so upset?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And he was all about teaching me that it was me and I was not a good communicator. He said I was the worst communicator he'd ever been with. And so I kept trying harder and harder, and I just could not figure this out. And one day I had to say, I attracted an abuser on purpose because these wounded pieces chose the man that I wanted to be with. It was familiar to me. In my first marriage, I didn't have those things. I came from a more enlightened place, but as we go through life, more and more wounded. The more we do our work, the more wounds that are coming back to us. Mm-hmm. Just like that layer thing that you're talking about. And depending on how much wounding we've had as a kid or how much there is in our DNA, we just keep kind of working at it. So I had all these pieces of myself come back, and parts that had fragmented away during my initial trauma were with me and chose she was looking for an abuser because it was familiar. And it took me a while to admit that. Now, I'm not saying it's my fault. I own none of his choices. I am not accountable for anything he did to me. Sure. Those are his. No woman, no man, no child is accountable for what someone else chooses to do to him. But I had to realize I stayed in it because I was those wounded pieces trying to figure out how to heal him to make my history not my fault. And I was like, okay, now I get it. And then that's when I could finally leave. And
then were you kind of done with those wounded fragments?
I've incorporated them. I know this sounds weird. I've never been that person who's been like, my 5-year-old says this. I have too much masculine energy for that. Like in therapy, I was like, yeah, I'm not, don't do that child thing on me. But it really almost is young pieces of myself that sort of got put in a box, and then it opened back up. And what happened is, I had to admit, I didn't make a good choice in choosing this next person, because those pieces were still in that little fragmented feeling like abuse was normal.
Okay.
And that's who chose. And so it's a matter of just even some self-talk and some self-validation of, oh my gosh, okay, I was attracting this. I thought I deserved that. I thought this is what's normal. That's not what I want. I'm a grown up now and I can make better choices. And when I see these things, move away from them instead of trying to fix it. Because I was always trying to fix it, thinking that would fix, what had happened back there. Does that make sense?
I think so. Sorry. I guess what I'm hearing you say, once you recognize that you attracted this, you kind of deal with it in an inner way and talk to yourself and kind of work through some of those feelings, own it, and let him own what he did, and then choose a different path.
Yeah. And he's never owned what somebody else doing their work doesn't affect whether we can heal or not.
Okay.
Just like you sit with that grief that you didn't do something for someone and you feel some shame about it. That is what happened for me, but at a different level. I have these parts of myself that are going to look for an abuser if I don't own them into me and say, this is a part of who I am that fragmented away from me, that's now kind of woken up, come on board, however you want to say that I'm now aware of, that I'm integrating into my more conscious life. I'm not going to seal it off and put it in a box. So it's a part of me that still has some immature thinking, trying to fix abusive people in order to show herself it's not her fault that she was being abused.
Okay.
And so I can heal myself just by taking care of her myself and letting her know as an adult, I see it wasn't her fault. I recognize this had nothing to do with her. I heal her, not some abuser coming in and healing that wound, but I heal the wound by sitting with her in my heart and welcoming her back.
Wow.
You
I
get
love
the
that.
you're looking for, because all in all, you're the one doing the work. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a very big, vulnerable story. Thank you for sharing your experience with that. I love that, Shalene, that you kind of brought up with that, the difference that, both you and I talk about kind of on the side, right? Where we joke about you being linear, and, I just get it on such a feeling level, because it makes sense to how many times I notice when something personally comes up in my life here and there that seems really heavy. It's almost, I love that you not that I was attracting it, but yeah, I kind of did, because I'm looking for a way for that closure. And as much as, and I don't know, there's this thought that I have that as much as putting stuff in a box has had a lot of negative consequences, there is something powerful to some degree in that, because it has helped me to separate and understand why those things have happened the way that they have, or when I'm attracting something the way that it is. Oh, it's that box that's talking right now.
That damn box. Shut the lid. Go get a chain. Put a padlock on it. Hurry. And it's like, don't let it open. And it's just bubbling up. We have to have those boxes as kids sometimes because we wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
It's a survival mechanism. So we all do it. And sometimes it's little slight things and sometimes it's big. But we wake up in this lifetime and we come into relationship with others in order to heal.
Yeah.
We are attracting, my family dynamics so I can rework it as an adult. I attract that same partner that I might have seen in my parents' marriage without even realizing I'm choosing the same thing. It just looks slightly different. Then you get into it and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of my parents' marriage. What is going on?
Oh my gosh.
And so we attract those things in order to keep these wounds up, in order to become aware and then heal. But we don't see it that way. So you sit on a rock and cry alone for 3 years and are homeless. We don't know what that means. We really just keep wanting other people to love us. And we think we're going to heal when they love us. But it's really about our relationship with ourselves. But getting in there is so frightening. And we need sometimes really severe circumstances in order to get in there that deep within ourselves. And so it's challenging. And so we get all tangled up in the relationship part.
Yeah. Oh, I can just look back at my life and I can see all these little things. And that's such a beautiful way of painting a picture for me, my linear mind of, the boxes and just kind of being able to recognize some of the patterns that happen and then being able to somehow release those patterns and move forward. And I think everyone needs to hear this. Everyone.
Yeah, it's really powerful. I think it was Aristotle, it might have been Socrates, told of a myth that when we were first born, I hope this isn't offensive to anybody, but I am going to tell it the way that it was told. We were comprised of 4 arms, 4 legs, and we were male parts and female parts together, mostly, but some were female and some were male and male. And that's what wholeness was to us originally, is being with our other part, which we're now calling twin flames, soulmate, stuff like that, right? But the gods became threatened, thinking that we would figure out how to tuck up into a ball and roll uphill and reach the gods. And so they split us apart. And we wander this earth looking for our other part. And when I heard that story, I thought, it's a God trick. Because the reality is we could do that and roll up that hill ourselves, but we're so busy looking for the other person that feels like our other half that we don't get our own internal work done to get to that divine place. Wholeness. It's just another distraction where we're not getting inside of ourselves and getting a hold of controls of our own divinity and realizing our true nature to feel whole.
Yeah, I love that idea. And it's kind of, we've talked about this a little bit of the only person that can truly meet your own needs is yourself.
Yes.
You can't get
husband, I make him do it.
Yeah.
You attempting that.
It's like you said about relationships, though. If we can't find it in a partner, then we find it we're looking for it somewhere else, in a friendship, in a mother-daughter, a child-parent. I mean, whatever it is, we're
Do you
looking.
think addiction?
Yes.
Too?
We could go all the way down that path, right?
Yes. And it's where it is the right answer, that we are supposed to love ourselves and we shouldn't look anywhere else if we can't find it inside of ourselves. It can make us feel so lost while we're looking for it. It's like, it feels endless. Your ego burns to the ground. Your identity burns to the ground. Sometimes your career, sometimes your religion, sometimes your family. But really getting there is such really profound work that it's a rarity to have it happen. I know a few people who've had it happen.
Have what happen?
One of them went to the Amazon. She was going to stay there for 3 weeks and work with a shaman to try and heal. She had a lot of wounded energy in her lifetime. And she was there almost 4 years. Whoa. That's how long it took her to really get there. And she was journaling, and it was hard for her to read her journal after there were so many tears all over. The other one is Rick Jarrow. He went to India. He was going to find himself, spend a month there, come back. He was there for 3 years. Told his students he sat on a rock and cried. And when I first heard that story, probably 10 years ago, I kind of laughed. And I thought, yeah, I could probably do that. And then I had my 3 years where I thought, if I would have known what this was going to be like, I would have left the country, sat on a rock, and cried. And I could have gotten there so much easier by doing that than staying in my real life. But I didn't have a job at the time. I had the luxury of just being inside myself, and I'm paying huge prices for taking that off. But having said that, there are people that are starting to show up on this planet who've really gotten in there and done it. And we're going to hold space for other people, because once you get in that doorway, you want to turn around and open it and get back out. There's no handle. You're in.
You're in. That's why it's so heavy. Shoot.
Yeah. And it's like this tsunami. It comes in slow and it starts stripping everything away when the water goes back out. But the good news is, when we get to that point, all this kind of everyday suffering and angst and this thing that our mind is going through all the time, it heals. Your inner world is so different that you'll just never be the same person. And occasionally you'll start crying because you love yourself so much.
I remember Byron Katie saying that same thing.
Really?
She said that crying, but also she was sitting with her son and they were just sat there and they just cried because of the love that they felt for each other.
Oh, wow.
So interesting.
Amazing. And Byron Katie has this amazing story of she literally almost went off the edge. Eckhart Tolle as well. They are people who are showing up, who have gotten that deep inner work done in an authentic way. I'm not talking about, forgive me, a Tony Robbins seminar. I'm talking about they went down the rabbit hole and in a very different way present the work. I get it now. I'm not where Byron Katie is or Eckhart Tolle, but I got in there, and I'm still navigating my way back out, but I understand in a way that I could have never understood when I first read those books. I get it now. And it's going to happen for everybody who stays on the planet.
Yeah. Well, and what I like about that is not everyone has to go to Africa or India or the Amazon for 3 years, is that you can do it in your everyday life, which is exactly what you did.
Yeah. And we're going to need a tribe of people who are understanding, not shoving some positive affirmation in your face. Now, you can't stay in these deep places forever, but we can't shame people out of them. We need people who are going to be a tribe of people to kind of light the path a little bit, show up for each other, hold each other in these spaces, be understanding. And then, the dark spaces, you walk through those alone.
Right.
That's the eye of the needle. That's, you get in there and you're alone, but having people being understanding and saying, you're going to make it, it's going to be okay, and this is normal, and it's hard, it's so hard, and it's going to be okay, and it's worth it. We're going to have more and more people showing up, being able to create space for each other where we can be done.
Well, it sounds like you're doing that a lot in your life, and we're so grateful for you sharing how that knowledge has affected you. And honestly, I think it is going to continue to be people like you that are spreading this awareness so that we can be that for each other. Truly. Thank you for being here and sharing with us today.
Yeah. I've got a lot to think about.
Oh gosh, I'm going to have to table that for a while. It's going back in its box, kids.
Oh, that was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with me. I feel like we need to have you back on to talk about this again. I loved it.
Thank you. I would love to do that. I would love for you guys to sort of marinate in this for a little while. Just get, open up the pores of your mind and let it sink in and just try it on and see. Yeah, I'd love for you to see what happens for you and what thoughts come up. And
I love that visual. Try it on, because that means I don't have to commit either. I haven't done the whole rabbit hole, but I definitely had a point. A friend and I were joking the other day, remember when ignorance really was bliss? Remember before I opened up this whole pot, this whole kettle of, what do they call it? Kettle of fish for this whole stinky kettle of fish. I guess I was doing okay. I mean, it was hard, but I didn't know any different. And now I'm aware. Dang it.
I really appreciate you guys asking me on. You're lovely and you guys are doing great stuff in the world. And you never know who you're going to affect. There's somebody out there listening to your podcasts one person who's really going to find the support and the substance that they needed to make it through something, because you guys are doing this. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right. We're going to get off the serious train for just a minute.
Okay.
So since this is called What We Learned This Week, we wanted you to kind of rack your brain for a minute and see if there's something that you've learned this week. It could be as simple as I learned that you can tie your purse to your shopping cart with the produce bag. Like something like that. Like if there's
Celine knows those kind of tricks. I do not know those.
Oh gosh. There's in our bodies, there's something called the sacroiliac joint. And so in anatomy, we just call it the SI joint.
Mm-hmm.
And I was teaching a group of therapists, and I said she has SI issues. And later, one of the therapists came up to me and said, that means suicidal indication.
No.
I was like, hey, SI can mean a number of things. She does not have suicidal. Okay, I'm gonna learn some more verbiage here this week. So that was so funny. We think we know what we're saying, and someone else hears the exact thing that we are saying. It's a whole different thing. So that's what I learned this week. SI can mean a lot of different things.
Oh, that's so cute. I think we need to make that into a meme, Liz.
SI can mean. Oh, shoot.
That's awesome.
We'll turn things into quotes later, Corena. We might be using that this next week's podcast when we post you.
Yes. Oh, well, thanks again. And I learned so much. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
You too.
So, question of the week.
Yep, I got it. So, what is the dumbest way that you've been injured?
Dumbest way I've ever been injured. How about not even knowing I was ever injured?
Okay, sure.
So, like, this whole knee thing. Oh, my knee starts hurting. And they're like, oh, yeah, you tore your cartilage. Well, how? I don't know.
So you
Like-
never had like a point of impact or anything?
Yeah, no. Mm-mm.
Oh, that's so weird.
Feels pretty dumb.
That is dumb.
I feel like that qualifies.
Yeah, I think that qualifies.
Yeah. Stupid knee.
Yeah.
Dang it. How about you?
Mine is actually knee related as well.
Ooh.
I was taking a Zumba class.
Okay.
And we were dancing to Call Me Maybe. I can remember that.
I really don't love that song.
Oh, actually, I do.
Do you? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's kind of one of those happy songs. I like happy songs.
You can't, yeah, okay. I can see that.
Yeah, and so we jumped out wide, and all of a sudden my leg just snapped, and I fell to the ground.
No.
And I had to like scoot on my butt out of the class.
Oh my gosh. That's
and everyone's
awful.
like staring at me. And so I get out, and I'm like trying to stand up. And anyway, somebody comes over and helps me sit on the couch, and he's like, do we need an incident report? And I was like, I don't think so. I think I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then really, I was fine. Like after one day of being in bed, I was fine.
Really?
But I had torn my ACL.
Oh my gosh.
So
did you have to have isn't that the
I
one
did
you
have
had
to have
surgery?
surgery. Mhm.
Okay.
But I didn't notice for a long time because I had been taking so many strength training classes.
Uh-huh.
And I had talked to an instructor who said that she had torn hers, but because she was, if you can strengthen the muscles around your knee, you can actually create like a false ACL to protect
Really?
your knee. Uh-huh.
Wow.
And so at that point in my life, I had been, I don't know why. Anyway, I feel like I'm bragging, but I'm not bragging. I just...
Girls, she had some big muscles.
I had some muscles. And so, yeah, it didn't get swollen. Nothing happened until it happened again a couple months later.
What song was it that time? And was it in a Zumba class?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
It wasn't like a simple, I'm walking down the street one day.
No.
Oh, okay.
Is that a better dumb way?
I don't know.
Like, is it
I mean,
Zumba
I've heard
class?
some good stories. We have...
My sister's mother-in-law tripped on a curb and broke her femur.
What?
Yeah.
That's like impossible.
I know.
I didn't think you could break that.
It's kind of
Unless you were
rough.
like 85 and slipped on the ice or something.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I was like, are there any underlying causes?
Wow.
Because that's a pretty, like you said, pretty impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my kids broke his collarbone. Those can break. But it was a dumb reason. They were chasing each other through the house and slammed the door too hard. And somebody was still in the way.
What?
I know. And we weren't even home. A babysitter was watching the kids. So we come home and he's like curled up on the, couch, put himself to sleep after crying hard enough because it hurt. And we were like, why didn't you call us? We would have come home. And she felt bad because she didn't want to call us to come home.
She felt like it was her fault.
Yeah. Well, and she was like, well, it seemed okay. He was like puffy, swollen. Like we had to run him to the ER. Yeah. Good times. Any other have your kids had some crazy injuries?
Well, Aiden, my son, when he was in Scouts, they were doing like carving soap or something.
Oh no.
And it slipped and cut his palm.
Oh my gosh.
And he was so embarrassed that he cut himself. And I guess it didn't hurt right away, you know?
Yeah.
And so he like tried to hide it. He tried to hide it. He cut himself.
He's
so
like dripping blood.
Is dripping all over the ground. And his friend's like, Aiden? Are you bleeding? He's like, no, I'm fine.
We're like, we can see blood coming from your fingers.
I know. So yeah, we had to take him to the ER, and like you could see, you know, the fatty tissue and everything in there. He'd cut it.
Oh my gosh,
deep.
it wasn't even a little.
Yeah. So
did he get stitches and all that too? Oh,
he
geez.
did.
Yeah.
It was like the scout leader called me. She's like, we feel really bad. I was like, it's fine.
It happens
so
when
funny.
you're carving soap. It's fine.
Yeah, who gave a 9-year-old a knife? Just kidding.
Yeah, right? What was the adult supervision on that one?
They were there. I guess he just is as talented as I am when it comes to carving.
Yeah, I couldn't. It's true. I'd lose a finger.
have dreams of like being able to carve something.
Really?
But I don't see the
It's
world
a really
that
random
way.
dream. I don't think it's ever been in my... I need to dream about... Yeah, I don't know. It's never been interesting.
Yeah. I just think it'd be really cool to be able to make something out of wood, a plain piece of wood.
Yeah, it would. There's some beautiful things that exist in the universe.
Anyway, that's probably too much information for a question of the week.
I don't think it is. I think we need to continue always with all the information when it comes to questions of the week. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So,
send us your crazy, most ridiculous injuries. Yes, dumbest.
Dumbest.
Injury.
I want to hear the dumbest. Okay. It's more funny that way.
We're gonna simplify it. Dumb injuries. Send them our way.
Yep.
And remember, next week we're talking about the Enneagram.
Yes. I hope you're curious.
And if you're not, Google it, and you will be.
That's true.
Right?
It'd be like personality tests. If you don't like them, you probably won't care. But
yeah, maybe.
I think most people, that's why horoscopes are such a big deal.
Right.
Because I think people have a desire to want to understand themselves a little bit more.
For sure. I agree. And whatever route that is that you seek horoscopes, the color code.
Right. There's a lot. So this is just another way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably every different way can reveal something about yourself, but also you might understand it more.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I like it.
Okay.
And I'm excited to talk about it. So, signing off.
Okay. Remember, keep learning.
Because it does matter.
And so do you. That picture looks a lot different than she does in real life.
Oh, that's pretty accurate.
Is it?
Yeah.
She's so beautiful when we were talking to her.
She is. She's gorgeous.
Yeah, she is.
I'm like, can I be like that when I'm 53? Oh, wait, I'm not even like that now. So.
Yes, you can.
Oh, shoot. You there?
Yeah.
Hear me? Cool.
Oh my gosh. Well, I wish all I had to do was put on clothes and look like that. So, way to go.
It was a high speed wobble. I'm just
You make it look good, girl.
Yeah.
Thank you. How are you guys doing?